Hi, my name is Sifiso Mdletshe, and I've been tasked by Ms. Anika Thompson to evaluate and draw up a risk assessment on a company called Airwaves International Limited. Airwaves International Limited is a South African international airline founded in 1965. So this airline has a vast network in over 40 international countries. They are not just an airline. They provide integrated distribution network and terminal services. It's time to discuss the association risk. The last two financial years, they've changed their key management personnel completely. Their chief executive officer, Ms. Elizabeth Gray, was appointed recently in October 2019. Their chief financial officer, Mr. Craig Kariv, has been appointed in January 2020. It poses a risk for us assured auditors because there is a certain level of uncertainty about that. We don't know what went behind the thinking of hiring so many key management personnel in recent years. So now, because so many changes took place, I had to look through the backgrounds of all the key management personnel in the company, including the background of the company itself. A background check on the company's total assets and aircrafts was made. A background check on the financial status of the company was made. And now to summarize any background checks that could impact our association risk with this company. So I also found out that their whole financial team, in fact, has little to no experience in accounting or financial matters. This is a risk to them and us because when they publish their financial statements, they publish them with so many errors that jeopardize the integrity of the financial statements. So now to mitigate that risk, the company needs to hire a more experienced financial team to handle their finances. That way they have assurance and certainty that the financial statements will be well represented in the public eye. Airwaves' non-compliance with the industry legislation has cost them 23 million rand over the last few years. That is totally unacceptable. That is totally unacceptable. And them not complying with industry legislation puts us at risk as well, as we are associated or would be associated with a company that's breaking every law in the book. I would advise them to have stricter and better controls on following the law and following rules. And whoever in the company goes against that policy needs to be dearly punished because they do not meet company values of corporate governance. A non-executive director and chairman of the board, Mr. Tom Weber, who is also the CEO of Emanzini Water, he has been accused of manipulating chain management processes and the tenders awarded with 230 million rand by the water and sanitation minister. So now being associated with an individual who is accused of such poses a risk for us and Airwaves International Limited, since this person causes a conflict of interest with us. So we must make sure that we dissociate ourselves with an individual like that. They've been sued actually by their most loyal customers because of a data breach that happened recently. The company fails to have proper controls of the IT system and fail to adhere to IT laws and regulations, puts a threat into our business with them. Let's look into the integrity of certain factors of the company. Airwaves International Limited is paying us an exaggerated amount for auditing fees. They're paying us 18 million rand, especially for a company that is currently having cash flow problems. That gives opportunity and incentive for unethical behavior either by our key management personnel or their own. Because since they're paying us so much, we would want to do them favors because we would be scared of losing them as a client since they provide majority of our annual revenue. It's a very inexperienced financial team with people who have never even had any working experience whatsoever. This creates a room for errors in the financial statements. Airwaves International Limited uh, is not currently a going concern company. First of all, they are defaulting a lot of their covenants. They have a problem with their cash flow operations. I mean, in the 2019 financial year, they only had about 24,000 in their cash flow. And then moving on to the 2020 financial year, they suddenly only have about 12,000 Rand in their cash flow. That is bad for a company which has so much current liabilities, which means that this automatically makes them insolvent and illiquid. Now, for this reason, they will struggle to meet their immediate debt. So I wanted to determine if Airwaves International Limited would be able to afford our auditors' fees. To determine that, I looked at their profitability. And then, first of all, I analyzed and interpreted their profit margin, their net income margin. And I found that in the financial year ended 31 December 2019, it went considerably well considering the industry that they are in. The profit margin that year was 20.95%. However, it all went incredibly south for the financial year ended 31 December 2020 because suddenly we saw a negative profit margin of 265% in the negative region. That is considerably bad. It actually means that for every 265 Rand the airline spent, they only received 1 Rand in revenue. There are reasons for that, of course, and it's not reasons that occur every single year. For example, the revenue decreased because of the coronavirus pandemic, where flights had to be grounded for a considerable number of months. And then as well, the Boeing 373 MAX, they had to ground 5 aircrafts actually of that type of plane because of the crashes that have been happening in recent years. That immediately decreased the revenue considerably, and that is why they went to the negative area of the profit margin. I mean, the airline is currently depending on government funding just to continue to operate. So how would they pay the 18 million that they promised they'd pay in auditing fees? It makes no sense. They do also have solvency issues, which is why their debt to asset ratio increased, actually ballooned in just 2 financial years. It was lower in the 2019 financial year, and then suddenly it massively increased in the 2020 financial year. It is still concerning that the company is heavily funded by debt. So now, in conclusion, I have to ask myself, does Airwaves International Limited present reputational risk to us if they had to be our clients? And my conclusion is yes. After taking everything into perspective, they do pose a reputational risk. Because first of all, they have key management employees in their ranks that are part of scandals like Tom Weber. They are breaking all the laws and regulations of the industry. They've been fined massively in the past before. It's all over the news. They pose a financial threat to themselves because they've hired an inexperienced team. We also think that they cannot afford to pay us the 18 million Rand fee that they promised. And it is a dodgy amount simply because it's too much. There has to be an incentive right there to be soft when we give an opinion on their financial statements.